So keep working, keep striving, never give up, fall down 7 times, get up 8.
So should we speak into the microphone?
Ease
Tell me.
is a greater threat.
Do we speak
Yeah, to
directly?
those two.
So we
Little back.
need to
Little back.
Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. So keep moving, keep rolling, keep learning. See ya.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're in the studios of 104.9 FM, 1490 AM, Making an Impact Radio. I'm your host, Dowd Alameen, coming to you out of the port city of Wilmington, North Carolina. Show is called No Covers, Straight Talk, No Chase. So you all know the routine. Facebook, come on in. YouTube, you're welcome to come in at this time. You all that are driving and listening, stay tuned today because we have a different format from what I usually do. In other words, I'm going to have to shut up today. I can't talk. We've got some guests in the house that we'll be bringing in, talking, having a panel discussion today about Florence 6 months later and how it affected the community. And we're coming from panel of folks that work in the media. So I'm going to turn the show over right now to my good friend from Working Narratives who puts this all together. Ren, take it from there and we'll chime in.
All right. So
And
just
introduce yourself.
by way of introduction, Working Narratives is an arts and social justice nonprofit, and we are located here in Wilmington. We work with movements to tell great stories that inspire, activate, and enliven our democracy. We believe that social movements thrive when they can draw on participants' personal experiences and local cultures. In this particular part of the Working Narratives operations is a collaborative program that's part of our media ecology project. And that brings local journalists and other community members together for dialogue and sharing. So we owe a special thanks to our lead funder, Democracy Fund, and to Daoud, hardest working, not the hardest man, the hardest working man in radio. And just quickly, I want to introduce our guests. Our guests who will help us take a deep dive into the ongoing story of Hurricane Florence are Frances Weller, who's a native of Wilmington, and she began her television career in 1982 with WECT. And for 3 years, she was a general assignment reporter. In 1986, she was named co-anchor of WECT's 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock news programs. And she is also the anchor of WECT News at 5 o'clock. And now we have Marcy Cuevas with us also. Is that okay?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Great job.
She works for WWAY, and she has done so since September of 1999. And she arrived only a few days before Hurricane Floyd made landfall, so she knows a lot about hurricanes. Marcy was born in San Pedro, California, and moved to North Carolina in 1989. She started at WWAY and as a part-time editor. She moved up the ladder from editor to reporter and eventually news anchor. She was the morning anchor of Good Morning Carolina from 2006 to 2011. Adam Wagner works at the Star News, among other papers. He writes about the environment for Gatehouse ENC papers, where he helped uncover the story that Wilmington's drinking water supply was contaminated by Gen X, which is a byproduct, an industrial byproduct. So first of all, congratulations on all the work you've been doing. And this is one of the most difficult beats in journalism, covering disasters. So thank you. So it's been about 6 months since Florence. It hit Wilmington with 27 inches of rain, 105-mile-an-hour winds. Dozens of people were left dead. There were tens of millions of dollars in damage. But let's start with your personal story. Like, how did Florence impact you as an individual? You know? And anyone who feels like it can start.
I'll jump in here. So we at the Vapor, our old building is just across the street here on 17th and Dawson. And in the middle of the storm, the roof started falling in. So we have a new building. We ended up getting out of that one, left at the height of the storm, and are downtown now in the Harrelson building. It's very cramped quarters, operating kind of. Probably close to my editor and Marcy right now at any given time. So I think like everyone in the state in Wilmington, we got to feel the impact of just how sort of chaotic those few days were. And I think that for anyone that was here, it was really the length of the storm that was most sort of just draining. I mean, at some point, you're just trying to do your job and wondering if that rain's ever going to stop. It doesn't feel like it is. Because you're at a point where you have, I'm sure that both of you had similar experiences where there were emergency management people telling us, we've never seen this before. We don't know what this water's going to do. We don't have really a plan for this. And you're sort of making everything up as you go. And I think that was sort of that couple weeks there. And I think that we've sort of seen that in the 6 months that we followed. I think they're sort of doing their best.
And I think one thing too, and I'm sure Fran would also agree, at least when you're on TV, you have a responsibility to be on. And so we were on for more than 80 hours. And for a lot of folks, it's learning as you go. So we were rotating folks in and still trying to get information. And that's what was so important, is to kind of, depending on the crews you have in the field and then affiliates who are also in town working as well, trying to get as much information as you can, because that's what's hard. We can't be everywhere, so we're really dependent on trying to get as much from other folks to kind of relay to people who maybe were still able to watch us with power, or folks who may have had radio. We were able to simulcast for a while. And the impact is just the stress. At first, there's a lot of adrenaline as you're working like nonstop in the TV station, and you're just going and going, and that's what's keeping you going. And we were pretty much on an 8-hour rotation with a lot of our crews. They try to sleep or do what they could for 8-hour free time, and they were back at it, whether they were anchoring or whether they were in emergency management, trying to get information that we could relay to folks who were watching and listening. And then after it kept going, and we're like, how long is Florence going to stick around? It was a play-by-ear thing. You know, we got to keep going. We got to keep going. As in, roads were being washed out, and that was like one of the longest Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday days. You didn't know one day to the next what was going to happen. So it was learning as you went, trying to figure out what you could do better. So it was really stressful for the days we were doing it, but we still had a job to do and trying to do as much as we could, get as much information out there, and still trying to rest or grab something to eat when we could. So it was long. And then even when we got to go home, it didn't end. That's when the flooding was starting. So it was go home, you get a break, you're actually checking on your home, because a lot of folks didn't know what their homes looked like. They were stuck at the station, or if they were in emergency management, and then you finally maybe had a break. I can get home, let me go see what it looks like. And we had reporters who, they got home and damaged water had come in, roof had come in, and they were looking at their belongings. It's like, oh, so they still had to work and try to figure out how to start somewhat on moving and cleaning and repairs. And so then even when we quit having the coverage nonstop, then it was still for several days, Hurricane Florence stories, trying to find out what people needed to know the most. So it was very long. I think for 2 weeks, we were still trying to get back to normal as far as our work life, not so much home life. People were still dealing with the effects of the storm, but then trying to get back to a normalcy as far as your job. So that definitely had a big impact on the folks at the station.
Well, I think my initial impact started before the storm, and that was whether or not I was going to stay. I'm older than you all are. I've been through a few hurricanes. And so at this stage in my life, I had to make a decision on whether or not I was going to stay for what initially was a potential category 4 or 5 storm, which could be catastrophic. I'm recently married. I have a twin sister who is really my only family here now, and they were all in Raleigh. So our news director gave us the option to not stay. We were given the option to leave. And so I had to think about whether or not I was going to stay as a journalist or go and be with my family. You know that once it's in your blood, it's hard to walk away from it. So I made the decision very early on to stay. The impact was tremendous. Your family is one place, you're in another. Then we're in a building that I felt comfortable in initially because, as I said, we've been through some hurricanes before, and while it's an old building, miraculously, it endured those storms. Well, it did not with Florence. In the midst of all of our coverage, water starts just gushing into the building, so much so that we had employees who were suctioning up water by the big trash can loads and dumping it out, coming back in and refilling it all over again. I mean, just water gushing in. And so we found areas where fortunately, our studio was good, so we could broadcast from there, but the building itself sustained a significant amount of damage. We were on 12-hour shifts, and so when we were able to, we try to get a nap, but a lot of times that was interrupted by rain coming into the area where you were sleeping on an air mattress. But like Marcy said, the adrenaline gets going. You're in the middle of this storm. You know you have an obligation to your viewers to let them know what's going on. It is what we do as journalists to report about this disaster that's going on. And you really don't stop and think about the fact that you could be impacted too, that the storm could destroy the TV station. You really don't think about it, even with the water gushing in. You know, we just knew we had to keep going and keep going and keep going. The one time that I thought, did I make the right decision to stay, was when we had back-to-back tornado warnings. And we're all in a narrow hallway, just down with our heads covered. And again, some of the employees are using this vacuum to suction up the water. And you know the saying that if a tornado's coming, you can hear a freight train sound. So at this point, everybody's quiet. I'm looking down going, oh my God, is this it? And will it be my coworkers that I check out with? I'm being realistic. That's what I was thinking. And so the suction of the water, everybody's quiet, but you can hear this. And I just yell at one of the employees and I say, can you turn that off? And my news director, my boss, looks at me and says, he's trying to save the building. And I looked at my boss and yelled back at him and I said, I'm trying to hear the freight train. And so that was what was going on at that moment. And I think that was probably the moment that will stand out in my mind internally in the television station, because it really was a point where we weren't sure that this tornado was not going to come and seriously wipe us out. We are near the intersection of Shipyard and Carolina Beach Road, and our meteorologist came running in saying the tornado is at Shipyard and Carolina Beach Road. That was a terrifying moment.
Let me ask this question because I'm also curious. I'm new to this, and I'm mental health is my background. Most of the time when storms come, I'm locked into a building with about 25. This year I was locked in again. I worked for Link, so I was with Frankie Roberts locked in his building over there with the guys coming out of prison. And then when I was able to get back to the station, we came back in and got back up because initially our power went down and we weren't on the air. I always FM at the time. Now we have FM. But Francis, you mentioned something about family. How do you do that? How do you? Because I don't think folks realize that when they see you in the air, your family, because my family went to Atlanta. Your family is your concern. That's your family. How do you do that? That's miraculous in itself to sit there and give the information out that the people need. But in the back of your mind, back on telephone, where's my daughter? Where's my son? Are they okay? How you do it?
That was probably one of the hardest things I had to do because going through Floyd, I was young, 22, didn't really have husband and kids. You know, my parents were safe inland. So Floyd was just, you know, it's the adrenaline rush, didn't really think about it. But now I have 3 young children, 2 boys who are 8 and a daughter who's 6. And at first I was paranoid. I wanted my husband to take them inland to Charlotte where we have family. But we also have family in Leland. And instead he went to my parents in Leland. My dad has a whole house generator. And he's like, well, we'll be near you. He's like, I don't want to leave you. He didn't want to leave me here, but I was still stressing, like, you need to take the kids and go. And that's what was really hard because I was working and I'd still be texting or calling him, power the kids. Okay, you don't have power, but you got the generator. All right, you guys all hanging out, you're good. And then like when Fran said the tornado, it was also heading this way through Leland and the line was heading straight toward WWAY. And I had just laid down for about an hour, maybe around midnight or 1, whatever time it came through. And one of our producers come running through because we were sleeping in sales offices, wherever, on air mattresses, and started knocking on everyone's door, wake up, a tornado's coming. And I was just like, we all rushed into like an inner little building. And when they told us where the path was, and my parents' house is kind of near the station, I was like, oh gosh. And I was trying to dial like my husband, no one was answering, my parents, because it was kind of the middle of the night. I finally get my sister on the phone who was over there. I was like, there's a tornado coming because everyone was asleep. So I was worried about myself, but I was more worried about, you know, my kids. Wanted to make sure they were safe and the tornado wasn't going to head straight toward them. So this storm was really one of the hardest as far as where do you draw the line? Because we didn't know how bad as far as intensity it was going to be when we thought we were going to really get hit with maybe a category 3 or larger when we saw it coming in. That's when we were really like, what do we do? Stay, go, well, stay, but then I was worried about the kids. So it's a fine line to walk, knowing you've got your job to do and that's what you want to do, and then you're still worrying about your family. So it was rough.
Yeah, and I think that's all right. But I think that, I mean, when you're on, and you're working, and you might, I've noticed texting my family throughout the storm, but at some point you just have to turn the phone over because it's not only your family that's depending on you, it's all the families that people staying here, it's all the families that have left that are, I mean, really, that's when we're the eyes of the entire community. And that's when that responsibility becomes extremely, extremely heightened. And we're all aware of that, I think.
And I do think it's important to say this. This is reality. I think age plays a big part in that decision. When you're a young journalist, you're carving a career. You don't even really give it a thought about whether or not you're going to stay or go. You're going to stay because this is, let's be real, this is an event that can catapult your career. And so you're going to stay as a young journalist. When you get older, when you get married, when you have children, you start to say, okay, let's be realistic about this. Am I going to take a chance that I'm going to survive this and go back to my family? Or am I not going to risk it? I'm going to go with them and wish my television station the best. I mean, it was different for you, Marcy, when you were in your 20s. But when you have 3 kids and a husband, you have that to take into consideration.